sir.
Ready when you are, Gavin.
Okay. You guys turn on the mic or no?
Yeah.
It's on? Oh, okay, cool.
You got it on, right?
Yep, it's on. Hey, how's it going, everyone? Sorry, I'm a little like a zombified right now. I sang a little bit too much last night, so my voice is cracked. I sing exclusively just Sublime songs, is all I know. So yeah, it was a good time last night. So I blame Grand Rapids for all the good beer, so. Bells. So. Oh, okay. I'll try Founders tonight. So this is Host Honey on a Budget. We'll be starting now. And my name is CyberGoat or Leo. You can find me on Twitter, cyberGoatPsyOps. Does anybody know where that name's from? Why is my handle cyberGoatPsyOps? I got a prize for you. Say again? Yes. So that was my old MOS in the Army, was PsyOps. So, so yeah, we do a lot of information operation stuff. All right. So who am I? Oh, speaking of that, 13 years in the military, 2 years in the private sector, started out as sysadmin for MPs, military police, which is pretty cool. You go to a lot of forensic courses, a lot of forensic classes, mobile forensics. I went to incident response. Before there's 25 Deltas or 17 Charlies, I was doing that. Then the last half of my career was special operations. Currently working for a Japanese company. So think about a real conservative DoD type style company, 5 bosses, everyone works in a silo, that type of environment. So what do you do if you're broke? You can beg. If you have no money, you can beg. You can do that. You can, work up a tier. You can wait for Brian Krebs. He might dox you, but you can wait for Brian Krebs, to call your executive, be like, hey, we found something, or call in during quarters earnings, call, and you can wait for that to get exposed. And then all of a sudden you got unlimited funds, right? All of a sudden, for about 3 months, and they'll say yes to anything for about 3 months. Or you can use what I did in my infrastructure is use free and open source tools. There's tools like Sysmon, which is not open source, but it's free. Use Elk Stack, for your analytics. You can use OS Query, which is cross-platform. You use GrrCON by Google. You can use Velociraptor, which is pretty cool. Or you can use Malloc, for packet hunting. You can use Snore, Shikata. So there's a lot of open source alternatives to expensive EDR, network appliances, right? So this main talk is going to be about Sysmon OS Query in the Windows environment, but I'll get that in a little bit. So I'm going to try to get you to buy in to using Sysmon in your environment and why you should use Sysmon and OS Query. Who created Sysmon? Well, Mark Wojciechowski, he's a CTO for Azure at Microsoft, and he still updates it pretty regularly. And they actually do have one engineer working on Sysmon. I forgot his name. I think it's Mark Cook, but it's not his day job. So it's not officially supported by Microsoft. So just realize that. What is Sysmon? So what is it? Why are you going to implement it into your infrastructure? Well, it records Windows events. Anybody done any type of forensic analysis, forensic investigation knows that native window logs leaves a lot to be desired. So Sysmon makes that very easy to read, easy to parse, easy and a simple flat text file config file. You can do simple include or exclude. You can use that. And it's real easy when doing forensic analysis, because if you look at the native window logs, it's real hard to decipher. Some of the cool things you can do with Sysmon. You can catch process creations. What do you care about process creations? Well, it can spawn something it's not supposed to. Say, a Explorer EXE or WordPad is spawning a PowerShell or something like that, right? Network connection from the host. That's really awesome analytics you can use. Every time a file is created, or changes to a file, you can capture that. It generates events early in the boot process. So think of your bootkits, rootkits. And currently, there's DNS logging. which is real hard to implement because there's so much noise. Anybody who done proxy filtering or DNS logging is very hard. Same thing with Sysmon. It's very hard. But it's just some of the cool things you can do with it. When is it needed? When you want to enhance your native window logging, you want to enhance it. It's not an AV, it's not an EDR product. It just enriches your Windows logging is what it does. So it's retroactive analysis. It's not active analysis. So every 15 minutes, your logs get pushed to a Windows collector, and you can do a retroactive analysis on that. You want to look for the initial attack vector? Sysmon can help out with that. Improve reaction time for instant responders, for the analysts. That helps a lot. And detect lateral movement. So where's it deployed? Only on Windows. Sysmon is only deployed on Windows. Servers, domain controllers, endpoint users. Let's see. And default native Sysmon logs is about 65 megabytes. I know CEOs and executives care about how much is this going to bog down my system. Well, natively or out of the box configuration is 65 megabytes. In my research, is about 6 weeks of user data. Why would you need Sysmon though? Why would you need Sysmon? In my case, there was no endpoint visibility, no EDR. We had an AV, but it's black box. We can't use it for analytics. It's signature based. We couldn't do nothing with the antivirus. So we had a necessity to look at the endpoint. And Sysmon, I had prior knowledge of Sysmon. It was easy to implement. So I had to get buy-in from management to implement it. And this was my way of trying to get them to buy into using Sysmon. Also, some selfish reasons that I like Sysmon is, I'm a threat hunter by day. So I love, the more data I can analyze, the better it is for me. So this talk wouldn't be made without these contributors. Robert Rodriguez, Cyber War Dog, awesome, leads the field in threat hunting. He does awesome work, with Moldor, and he does a lot of cool stuff. He's always posting, edge cases and new stuff for threat hunting. Swisscom Security, the Windows professional, and he or she, not sure what they are, but he or she, Swift posts a lot of stuff about Sysmon. She even gets to play around with the beta version before it's even released. So follow him, because they're awesome. Jessica Payne, her blog, Monitoring What Matters, changed my life. So she talks about how to set up Windows Event Forwarding and a Windows Event Collector. Well, I'll get into here in a little bit. Eric Copiano from Recon InfoSec and OpenSock. He taught me a lot in Olaf. He does great work with Sysmon and Splunk. So, alright, so this is going to be a little background, a little context to how I deployed Sysmon and how I used it. So, think about a real conservative Japanese company that doesn't trust the cloud. Everyone's in silo, and I'm in this environment for the first 100 days. I want to make an impact. I want to make a return on investment where I'm pushing the needle forward in our security posture. So this is in the first 100 days, what I'm going to show you here. How can I help the organization I came as a threat hunter, but I saw the need of endpoint visibility, of getting analytics in there, because I did a lay to land, and I saw the data gap. I did a data gap analysis on the endpoint. We weren't getting none. So our breakdown is about 80% Windows, 19% Mac, and I'm the 19% Linux, and I'm the 1% Mac. I'm like the only Mac user, so Sysmon will fit in perfect. Small InfoSec team, responsible for like 30K endpoints. Let's see. So how did I deploy it? Well, you can deploy it a couple ways, right? You can deploy it through GPO, and that's what I did. I use GPO. You can deploy it through a batch script. You can use SCCM. I recommend SCCM just because IT ops, they love their metrics on how many endpoints actually received Sysmon. They like those kind of stats. But anything you use for orchestration or for deployment, you can use that tool, create a package, and send Sysmon on the way. But if you don't have nothing that can deploy easily, we had trouble with SCCM. For whatever reason, the package was failing, so we use GPO. Real easy to set up. So some of the things, so this is by David Bianco. He's awesome. But the pyramid pain, everybody knows the pyramid pain, right? So this is things I want to capture with Sysmon. Real easy hash values, IP addresses, domain names, all that network host artifacts. That's perfect. But the tough stuff is tools and TTPs, which analysts will have to create. But the bottom four, Sysmon can capture easy. And this is a pyramid pain by Dave Bianco. Pretty cool. He has a cool blog post on this. These slides will be on my website, cyberGoatPsyOps.com, and you can follow the links there. So that was my background. That's what I'm trying to capture. So now I need buy-in from management. How do I do that? Well, I noticed there was a malicious beaconing in our SIM. In this case, it was a elk stack. So there's a malicious beaconing, and that's all we had. That's how we go on. I'm like, great. I have all these 5 different managers who are real conservative that don't want to implement new technologies because it might bog down the system, and they don't know what the return on investment is. So I take that malicious beaconing, the IP address, the very bottom of the pyramid pane, and I deploy Sysmon with PowerShell script. I'm able to find a Kofter malware, which nobody cares about. It's a click fraud. It's commodity malware. Nobody cares about this. The vendors don't care about it. Antivirus doesn't catch it. So that was my time to shine. And to prove to management, all 5 different managers, look what I can do with Sysmon. Real easy PowerShell script. But as you can see, I'm able to capture a Kofter pretty easily. It was base 64 encoded. PowerShell should never be, base 64 encoded, right? And this is what I use to capture it. Real easy. I just parse the Sysmon logs with a query of the hash tables. So I'm doing all the hashes of the executables. Real easy. I'm also doing I did the file hash tables of every executable, and I'm also able to parse the command line arguments as well, which I care about that. If something's base 64, I'm going to dig into it. Real easy, 10 endpoints. I'll capture them in about 30 minutes. So, say you do want to implement Sysmon, but you have no money to implement it. You don't have no crazy infrastructure. You have no money. You can use built-in tools from Windows servers to actually collect logs from your endpoint, from your Windows endpoint. And how you do that is through a Windows event forwarding and a Windows event collector. So you turn on Windows event forwarding on every endpoint through GPO. Real easy to do. It's a GPO setting. You turn it on. You point it at the right direction though. You do have to point it to a certain direction, and that's to your Windows event collector, which is Server 2016. So all your endpoints are being collected with a Windows Server 2016 and server. And it acts as a logging mechanism for all your Windows endpoints. Any log you want. It doesn't even have to be Sysmon. It could be PowerShell logs. It could be RDP logs. It could be security data logs. It can be anything you want. I just told it to collect security and Sysmon logs. Eventually, you get into PowerShell and some other logs, but real easy, Sysmon and security, and you turn that on every endpoint through Windows Event Forwarding, the Windows Collector. You make sure you turn on the subscription on Windows Event Collector, and then you push that out to your SIM, whatever it is. It's Splunk Forwarder. You can use FileBeat, whatever you want to use. And bam, you're collecting all Windows logs. So this is what I use. I use the Server 2016. We use GPO for deployment. We use Elk Stack for our SIM, and we forward all the host data. And that's it. We start collecting, but you gotta make sure it does take a lot of maintenance. You do have to parse out a lot of normal traffic. Otherwise, your analysts will just get bogged down with all these alerts. So how do you create the Windows Event Collector? Which is, it's just a server, and you turn on in certain settings, and all of a sudden you're collecting logs from all your Windows endpoints. Well, you have to turn on WinRM, make sure it has access to the security logs, the right permissions. In GPO, you turn on Windows Event Forwarding and make sure the subscription's turned on to the right targets. So what I used was a batch script, probably not the most resilient, but it's a bash script that pulls from our app server, pulls a sysmon package, and then deploys it through GPO. I recommend SCCM if you can get it to work. Elk Stack's really easy to stand up, of course. So these are all free built-in tools, free open source tools. Elk Stack is Elasticsearch, Logstash, and Kibana front end, right? And I just use a Ubuntu server to stand that up. And of course, you want to proxy it. All right, let me stop for, okay, WingLogB. WingLogB is a shipper, is a event shipper. It's kind of like an agent, and it pushes all your logs to your Elk Stack, to your Elasticsearch. But before I move on, does anybody have any questions so far? If I'm talking too fast or my voice is cracking too much, any questions so far before I get into a little bit deeper? Yes, sir. Yep. So this is where knowing your environment, and I selected. I'll show you. I have a configuration file, but the original configuration file is on GitHub. It's through Swisscom Security, and that's a great baseline, but it's not production ready. So what I did is we did like a live and learn type environment where we shipped our sysmon to a test GPO, and I let the users run for like 2 weeks, and then I can filter out all the white noise, all the legit programs. So I let it run for about 2 weeks, but I was looking at the logs every day, filtering out, and it's a real simple config file. You just exclude what you want, but that's where analysts come into play as well. They know the advanced techniques, they know the lateral movement, they know what Mimikat artifacts they drop. So you're gonna do a little bit of research if your analyst is not up to speed, but you also gotta make a hypothesis. What do you want to look for? What's important to you? Do you care about lateral movement? Do you care about persistence? And ideally, you want to capture the whole attack lifecycle. The MITRE attack lifecycle is great, but your environment is specific per department. Finance might have an HR program that's logging crazy alerts, but you can just filter that out. Finance, HR, they all have their own applications that they use. So you have to filter that out little by little, ad hoc. So I just did it like a 2-week live and learn type thing. Any other questions? Did I answer your question, sir? Okay. Any other questions? Yes, sir. So the question was, did I use the Windows Event Collector and Windows Event Forwarding? Was that the question? Yeah. So what I did is I turned on Windows Event Forwarding, and that's in every endpoint. It's Windows Event Forwarding, and what that does, it directs it to the Windows Event Collector. And the Windows Event Collector is just a server, Windows server, and you turn that on, and all the Windows logs, it can be any type of window log, goes to your Windows Event Collector, and from there you ship it to your SIM. Yes, yes.
So with the WEC servers, I think that they're only built to handle about like 10,000.
Yes, you got a distributed platform, or distributed format. I guess you call it, but you gotta have more than one Windows Event Collector. That's correct.
And then, did you use any sort of like methods in order to have like high availability of that log data? For example, if one of those WEC servers were to go down, basically having
like redundancy. We have not implemented redundancy at all yet. So if it goes down, and it does happen, and when it goes down, I'm in there, trying to fix it. So, but the logs are still kept on the endpoint, so it does eventually get pushed. So it's not the best case scenario, but you're right.
Have you looked into, it's like a third-party product, it's called Supercharger, I believe?
Yes, I have seen that from IT's Windows Security or something like that. Yeah, he's awesome. We haven't looked at it because I don't think it's free. Is it free? Yeah, so we didn't look at it. It's an uphill battle. Anytime I want to implement something, I got to get these 5 managers on board and the departments, and there's a lot of political play in there. It's crazy. So every time we implement something, it takes a lot of battling with each manager in their own little political world. But no, we haven't looked at it. I know of it. And I use his resources a lot. But it's it's called Supercharger, and it's by IT Windows Security, I believe. And it's awesome. Anything else, sir? Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so we also implement OS Query. So what we're trying to build here is an ad hoc EDR platform. That's what it is. Just without the nice front end and stuff like that. So what OS Query was built by Facebook. Trailbits actually owns it now, and they're updating the code currently. So OS Query is pretty awesome. It's cross-platform, great support for Linux and Macs. Windows is starting to get there as well. It's a great supplement. It's not a replacement. It's a great supplement companion to Sysmon and vice versa. It's open source. We use it for audit capabilities as well with Diffie, so that's pretty cool. We have it in our CI/CD pipeline, and OS Query actually gets deployed with every new instance. So you can use it for file integrity monitoring. So anytime something changes on the endpoint that's not supposed to change, it'll tell you what changed on the endpoint. So that's pretty cool. There's also a front end. If you're not comfortable in the command line with OS Query, you can do a Collide front end, and it uses a SQL query language. So it's just some of the cool things it's a couple cool queries you can do with OS Query, and this is taken from OpenSock. There's a link in the bottom. So if you go to the web page, so the Eric Copiano runs OpenSock. I contribute to OpenSock, but these are like a query pack. They call it query packs. So some of the cool things you can do with OS Query, and OS Query is actively querying the endpoint, where Sysmon is retroactive. It's not live, but OS Query is. It's like you're on the box and actually querying the system on the command line. So initial access, right? We care about initial access. This is some pretty cool queries. You can see email attachments. You can see when the file was downloaded. So that's pretty cool. And once again, it's a SQL query language. You can do execution. So anybody that does forensics, I do forensics. You care about the prefetch, right? And the shim cache. You can query the shim cache and the prefetch with OS Query. So anytime there's executable on the endpoint, or you want to see if it's actually run on the endpoint, you can query that with OS Query. Persistence. Scheduled tasks. What kind of scheduled tasks are on the endpoint? Are they using that for persistence? What kind of services are running on the endpoint? You can't do that with Sysmon, but you can do that with OS Query. Okay. Am I good on time? Where's my time person? Okay. Logged in users. That's pretty cool. A lot of time, what I see in my environment is a hidden Windows account. Like the attacker creates an account and they use the hidden flag in the registry, so we can never see the account, but it was created by the attacker. You can see who's logged in. Command control. You can see listening processes. What processes are being active and beaconing out. What IP address, or is it 000? File downloads again for command control. So the MRU, the open save PID, right? So the open save PID, MRU, that's when the little assist or the recent file. Any recent files on your endpoint will be showed up on this artifact. Any questions about those OS queries? If not, what would I have done differently? So now that I've gone through this experience, good and bad, what would I have done differently? What would I do? What would I recommend myself 2 years ago, right? A year ago. What would I recommend myself? I would set up a source control environment. I would have got GitHub private repo. I would have definitely set up a source environment, because when you got different analysts, different people changing your config file, it's not all the time, it's not annotated. If it's source controlled, you have to annotate. It kind of demands to be annotated with good practices, right? So anything that changes, it could break a config file, could break the syntax of the config file. Being source control, this makes it easy to revert back or see what changed. Have different configuration files for users, servers, and domain controllers, because they're spinning off different artifacts that you might not care about in one environment to the next. So what I have in my environment is 6 config files. I got users, prod dev, I got servers, prod dev, and I got domain controllers, prod dev, just so I can test my config rules before I ship it out to production. So this is probably very important. You want to have a champion on a different team, because if it's just you saying to management, this is what I ran into, like, I want to implement Sysmon, it's going to help out. But maybe someone that's trusted in the environment for 10, 20 years, 5 years in a different different department, IT ops in my case, he was actually championing for Sysmon. He was my ally when I went up to those 5 different managers. So that's a big deal. That's awesome. I took him to lunch. I paid for his lunch, and it was awesome. He was my champion when it came to deploying Sysmon, which they were hesitant. It was an uphill battle, but we got it done. Work with the IR team. So I work threat hunting, but I saw the need of the IR team needing this Sysmon OS query. So I work with them, taught them how to update the config, do the config file, how to use SQL queries on OS query. So work with your IR team from the beginning, so it's easier to get your technical, your arms out of the pot, I guess. So when you back away, they can troubleshoot their own, or they can update their own config files and do their own queries, and they can start less maintenance for yourself. Otherwise, you're the person, that's it. Anything goes wrong, they call you in. You don't want that. Turn on audit logging as well. So let me show you something pretty cool about audit logging, if I have time. Oh. How do I? Oh, there we go. Come on. So this is by Robert Rodriguez. This is OSSEM, and he actually annotated what does Sysmon capture, what does native logging captures, and he tells you, for instance, file monitoring, dry raw access can be captured by Sysmon. But if you turn on security auditing, which is an option, right, on the endpoint, you can actually have enhanced logging, and you can actually have file monitoring with native log as well. Sysmon just makes it a little bit easier, and there is stuff that native logging is better at than Sysmon, and vice versa. Like Active Directory stuff, native logging is a lot better than Sysmon. So that's pretty cool. And it's by Robert Rodriguez, Cyber War Dog, and it's OSSM EM. So he done a lot of research on what log captures what. So I definitely recommend that as a baseline. And what you want to capture, what you want to look for, this will help out. Oh crap, how am I gonna get back? Yeah, sure. Will you be my friend? Add me on Twitter, LinkedIn, it doesn't matter. That's my blog. The slides will be posted with the links. That's my GitHub with some configuration files for Sysmon, what we use, and some other cool projects. Like I work on the Hive as well. I did some work with the Hive, which is a security incident response platform. So I got a couple apps on the Hive there. But yeah, that's about it. Any questions? I'll give you 3 minutes back. Any questions? All right. Thank you.